Hey, team players, Joe and Bob coming at you again. This time going through ESPN 60 through 70th rated players as they are today on June 3rd, the date of the recording. And Bob, for the last couple of episodes, we've been talking about people who need to be stepping back. Well, for that to happen, people need to step forward. And I feel like this entire group of 10 could potentially be jumping up a couple of rounds. This group also includes 3 of the 4 players in the NFL that I call my Mount Rushmore of vastly better fantasy players than they are in real life and getting you wins. In this order, Kyler Murray, the one who's not in this group, is the number 1 first and foremost. Number 2, Justin Fields. He'll give you a ton of points but no wins. Tyler Lockett will give you a ton of catch but no heart. And same with Deontay Johnson. So when I look at this group, a lot of them move forward and have potential to do some really good things. I love Gibbs and Pacheco a lot. And the reason for those 2 in particular is that both of these teams have basically shown with their offseason progression that they are going to put a much larger emphasis on running the ball. Mm-hmm. And I love Gibbs' situation. Yes, Monty is there, but you don't go and draft a running back in the first round and not use them. The easiest position you can enter from college to NFL is running back. He's a beast. He is a stud. I think it's going to be a very pretty situation up there for him. And I can easily see by the time we come around to August, him being a 3rd or 4th round pick, like easily. Mm-hmm. There's so many guys we talked about, like all the ones yesterday, like Gibbs is vastly better. And same thing was true with Pacheco. When Pacheco became the official starter and they stopped playing the, are we going to use you or not game? The guy put up points. He was a consistent double-digit feature back. And when we look at this, that's not something you should be able to get in the 7th round. It's just not. And then the running or the receiver room here is just stacked with potential. Tyler Lockett is probably the only one of this group whose situation has vastly gotten worse because Tyler Lockett is the possession receiver in Seattle. And that's what Smith is that Seattle just drafted. So I look at that and say, hey, he might be having to step back. Mike Williams gives you a big time when he plays. Question is, will he be able to play? I think Drake London is going to have the volume catches in Atlanta. And of the pass catchers in Atlanta, he's the one that I want. I don't want Pitts. I want London because, A, you enter your 2nd year, you tend to step it up a lot. And it's going to be an offense that's not going to have Mariota having almost 2 turnovers a game. Mm-hmm. And just by that default setting, I get that it's a young quarterback. No one knows what's going on over there. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be 2 extra turnovers a week. And therefore, there's just going to be more balls in the air to London, despite the fact they're going to be run heavy. They can't really be more run heavy than last year, though.
Yeah.
So I look at all this. I love London this year, especially here.
When you look at this, makeup here, mm-hmm. Kelvin Ridley is the guy for me and for most of the United States and most of the people that play fantasy football is probably going to be drafted in the 3rd or 4th round. He's not going to.
I think that's too far, though.
He's not going to last down here. What we know of Kelvin Ridley's skill set,
he's the first Jacksonville receiver, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of. I mean, if you look and you just pause it over, and I know that Christian Kirk and him are not the same player, right? Christian Kirk was the 12th best fantasy wide receiver last year with 241 points in a PPR league.
Okay.
12th. So you take a look and you say, does Kelvin Ridley have the skill set to be 12 or higher?
Yeah.
The guys that we were thinking about at that level are T. Higgins, right? Mm-hmm. Amari Cooper, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. We're drafting let me just finish here.
I got you.
We're drafting Jalen Waddle in the 2nd or 3rd round, and he had 259 total points, which is only 30 higher than Christian Kirk had. Now, you're also saying to me, I have a guy sitting here in Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett's situation has changed immeasurably in terms of what you're looking for out of a fantasy player. But so Tyler Lockett was the 13th best wide receiver in fantasy points last year, but his situation has gotten worse with Jackson Smith being there. But again, there's a tremendous amount of weapons there, and so when you're drafting from those teams that have a lot of weapons, you really have to be careful in picking which weapon you think is going to produce. But again, he's at 13. And so
had a great year. Him and Geno had a connection.
That is higher than DK Metcalf. That's higher than Mike Evans last year. That's higher than T. Higgins. That's higher than Ayuk.
And we think they're going to score more points this year than last year.
We think they're going to score more points. So, you've got to definitely question whether that's going to really be a thing. And right now we're sitting here 61 through 70, and I'm still talking about the 12th best or 13th best wide receiver last year. Then you go down and you say, okay, well, where's Mike Williams at on this list? Mike Williams often hurt.
He was.
He's the 32nd best wide receiver here. He only missed 4 games last year.
Yeah, but that's completely missed. He had a couple he came in and out, just like Connor did.
Exactly. So completely missed, but he's sitting at 176 total points last year. That's the 32nd best. That's behind Jacoby Myers, Adam Thielen, Drake London, Juju Smith, Zay Jones.
So that's about 13 per game when he was healthy.
13 per game when healthy. So
which is really solid. I'll take that as a number 2 receiver.
You're asking. So the reason I bring these numbers up here is that, okay, well, where's Deontay Johnson falling here? Deontay Johnson is sitting at the 28th best wide receiver. And the only thing about his game last year that in PPR leagues you're going to say is that he was suffering in was the touchdowns.
Yeah, he didn't score a touchdown.
If we go to a standard league and look at where Deontay Johnson falls,
oh, he's horrendous because he was all volume catches last year.
If you go to a standard league and you take a look and you can say, okay, well, where's Deontay Johnson? He's at 46th with 94 total points in a standard league. He has now, if you go to a PPR league, that PPR league means so much to Deontay Johnson. He jumps up to 28 and has 180 points. That's 94 or 96 more points than he had last year. So the reason I bring this up is that if we think Kenny Pickett is going to make a jump this year, Deontay Johnson is the player out of this group that could be around in this round because I think Kelvin Ridley.
But he's not the most. This is my problem with Johnson.
I get it. He's not the most talented player on this field. However, when you look at the Pittsburgh
There's
Steelers,
2 of them more talented that we haven't talked about yet. I'm going to want them.
When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and you say, okay, Deontay Johnson is sitting here, you're right. I'm not taking him in this player grouping. However, if you just gave me this group of players and said, take me the best players from this list, which we're doing, I can't logistically put Tyler Lockett's situation because he hasn't gotten a better situation. But Deontay Johnson's situation hasn't really changed.
Well, it hasn't. I mean, the fact that he is playing with 2 guys that are developing better than him and have surpassed him in talent on the same team, one being Freiermuth and one being Pickens, is going to negate his play. The other fact is the Steelers want to become more of a running team, which can only help, them overall. But their red zone production as the Steelers is one of the worst in the NFL. And a lot of this is that teams that beat the Steelers mostly did so by manipulating Deontay Johnson. And here's a fun fact for all those people out there who want to just hate on me from Steelers Nation. Deontay Johnson's average per catch was literally only 6 inches further than his average depth of target, which means
matter in fantasy football.
It matters whenever you're saying, who should I give the ball to? Someone like McLaurin, who's going to be able to have a chance to rip something off.
Right, or that's why Terry McLaurin.
That's why Terry McLaurin's already off. But George Pickens on the Pittsburgh Steelers averages about 5 yards deeper with the ball in his hands. So I look as the year goes on, I think that Johnson is going to become a much more diminished asset as people like Freiermuth and George Pickens develop. So I look at the rest of this group. Drake London's just get more and more of a volume share. Williams, when he's healthy, is higher than Johnson can be regardless. And Goddard, you can make a strong argument, is the second best pass catcher in Arizona. So I look at this group and say, I don't know how Deontay...
That's not really a good place to be at, though.
It's true, though.
But going back to Mike Williams and Drake London, Mike Williams and Drake London fell at 31 and 32 last year.
Uh-huh.
This is with Mike Williams getting 4 games missed. 176.3, 176.5 for Drake London.
Mm-hmm.
Drake London
missed some too, though, didn't he?
No, Drake London is played the full year.
Okay.
But again, that's on a run-heavy team. They just got another weapon in the run game.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what Kyle Pitts is going to do, and their quarterback situation got better.
I don't say how you can't say Atlanta's quarterback situation got better. You know what I mean?
So
you're not getting techs or 2 turnovers a game.
Desmond Ridder here is a very important asset to think about when you're thinking about both Kyle Pitts and Drake London. If you think Desmond Ridder, and we've said this about a couple other quarterbacks, if you think Desmond Ridder is going to go off, Drake London is perfectly fine to take in this round. Like I said, I don't think Kelvin Ridley is going to be available in this space. But if I were to rank these players right now,
well, I do want to put a caveat on Ridley, though. This is my caveat on Ridley. Even before he got suspended, he left the team outright. And he wasn't with them for 4 weeks prior to that suspension coming out.
That's
and that is in the whole notion of, do people want to play football? Granted, Atlanta was not good when he was there. But just walking away from the game, a la Mike Thomas, is not a great indicator. And yes, I do agree with you, Bob. He has potential to be top 10. And I think Lawrence can use him to infinity beyond. But I also see the fact that after you walk away, how excited and how shape are you in? Because, Ridley's a bigger body. He's not dependent upon speed like a Tyreek Hill is.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we do have to learn a new system. You do have to be dedicated. And everyone says the right things in the offseason, but when push comes to shove, what are we going to get? And at the 7th round, absolutely worth the risk.
So,
at the 3rd round, no.
Here's the other thing about this group of players here. You touched on Jahmyr Gibbs.
I love Gibbs.
So Miles Sanders.
I like him too. Yeah.
Miles Sanders is an incredible situation here where
so good.
There is a tremendous amount of veterans surrounding Bryce Young. And it's
no second running back there either.
Everything is pointing in the direction of Carolina being better this year. And Miles Sanders is an extremely efficient running back.
Yeah, rookie, hand it off, do it.
Miles Sanders had his best, reception total from last year. And if you look at where he fell last year, he is only behind Najee Harris. Najee was 14, he was 15 at 216 points in a PPR league.
You give me the 15th running back in the 7th round, that's league winning type stuff.
Now, I get that his situation has changed tremendously. But if you just look at that number and you look at that number and compare it to where he's at in terms of the standard rankings, he's at 10th in the standard ranking. So his passing game actually hurt him in a PPR league because he was more efficient as a runner than as a pass catcher. And so you look at
and he also was in a system where Hurts stole touchdowns from him.
Right. And so now you're looking at Bryce Young. Could that happen there? Absolutely, that could happen with Bryce Young. But
I think it's less likely they're going to let Bryce run compared to Hurts.
What I'm seeing here, though, is if I'm looking at those running backs that we saw from our last list from ESPN's rankings, Miles Sanders should be ahead of Rashard White.
Yes.
Miles Sanders should be ahead of Cam Akers.
Yes.
Miles Sanders should be ahead of James Conner. And Miles Sanders should be ahead of Alvin Kamara.
Yes.
This is a huge oversight by ESPN to say.
That's because they hate Carolina because Carolina never produces.
Yeah, but to say that to put Bijan Robinson in the first grouping of players with his tremendous ability.
And have Gibbs in the 7th.
And have Gibbs be between 61 and 70, knowing what Williams did last year behind that O-line, knowing what Williams did with this team. I think that those two players specifically are probably going to end up by
3rd or 4th roundish.
3rd, 4th round. And you're not even going to be able to get these players in this ranking. So
this is the group that's same with Pacheco. All those guys you just said, I'd have Pacheco ahead of him.
I would put Pacheco less so because the way that he was used last year in a standard league, I would have been okay with that. But in a PPR league, he ranked really, really low, and he only started to catch fire late in the season, but he didn't really
play until late in the season.
Right, but he didn't really do the things that we wanted. And there was what was his name?
He didn't get as many touches.
Yeah,
and
Jerick McKinnon was there, and Jerick McKinnon was taking a lot of reps away from him because Jerick McKinnon was just firing on all cylinders. And
it's also Reed doesn't trust rookies.
Yeah, and Jerick McKinnon is still there. So
I get that, but Pacheco's not a rookie anymore. I expect him to step up and take a bigger share.
I get it, but I'm still thinking that come August, we're going to see Isaiah Pacheco probably jump up into the 50s. But at the same point in time, if you're looking for a value play at this point,
all of these are values.
Isaiah Pacheco's there. I think that this group of players in this from 61 to 70, I would rather have all of these guys over the guys that were ranked 51 to 60.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And like I said, as I look at this, Bob, some of them are never going to win a football game for me, like Fields. I would be okay if Fields was the third quarterback off the board. If it was Mahomes, Allen's, Fields, that's not crazy to me. And you can tell me I can keep better quality assets and get Fields here. Like, I want to do that.
I mean, you look at these numbers. Fields was the 6th best fantasy quarterback last year, 307 points.
Mm-hmm. And he missed games.
The quarterbacks that ranked above him was Geno Smith, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts. Justin Fields didn't miss 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Was Geno Smith, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Allen, and Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
Sneaky situation for you at number 7, though.
Who's that?
Kirk Cousins.
Ooh.
So the reason I bring that up is that we are not even sniffing the sock of Kirk Cousins at this point in time.
No, you're not.
The Kirk Cousins situation.
This is the overall argument for why you don't take quarterbacks.
The Kirk Cousins situation has not tremendously changed very much. He still has Justin Jefferson. Better. He has Jordan Addison coming in, and
he got the Hawk for a whole year.
Alexander Madison and T.J. Hawkinson. And I'm just going to lay this out there too: is that the much maligned Daniel Jones and Jared Goff are sitting at 294 and 290. So
maybe Fields it's not worth it. Looking at all these other talent here, maybe going for. But I still think taking Fields as the third quarterback is not crazy.
I think if you're going,
I just think people overdraft quarterbacks.
If you're going to take a quarterback, it has to be Mahomes, Allen.
Yes, not fighting that.
And there's no other. And even if you wanted to take Hurts had arguably what many will consider to be
his career year,
probably the best season of his career, and he was only sitting at 384 points with 2 missed games. If he had played the full year, he probably could have gone over Patrick Mahomes' total. We know what Patrick Mahomes can do. We know what Allen can do.
Yeah.
Let's see if Hurts can do this for another year. And that's not any indictment against Hurts, but that's more of an indictment of taking a quarterback early. We saw that Hurts and Burrow were ranked. Hurts, Burrow, Lamar Jackson were all ranked in ESPN's top 50. And so, but you're still looking at that's an 80-point. I mean, it's 100-point difference from Mahomes to Cousins. 120-point difference, 130-point difference, really.
That's a lot.
And that's, I'm not doing any specific math. I'm just
130. Well, that's basically 2 points a game.
And you got Trevor Lawrence still sitting out there, 303 points that he got last year, and he didn't have the best season of his life either. And he's still available, and he's going to be coming up probably in the next grouping. But when I look
Lawrence is going to improve over last year's.
When I look at quarterbacks, I'm saying to myself, I would rather solidify my situation at wide receiver and running back and make sure I have
I agree with that. I mean, you can give me
go in my bye weeks.
If you give me Gibbs or Pacheco as a 3 or 4 running back, you now are the guy everyone's trying to buy from, and you can be selective as all can be when it comes time to trades.
So when it comes down to it, this is how my rankings shake down for this grouping. I would put Kelvin Ridley number 1 because he was a freak when he was healthy. There's a lot to say that he won't do the same thing, but there's a lot to say that he should do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Miles Sanders, obviously here. Miles Sanders, I think, is better than the last 20 players that we listed. So, I mean, I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be going much higher than that. I think his situation I mean, people will say it hasn't gotten better, but I think it definitely has gotten better.
Oh, his playing time has. He was splitting so many carries in Philly.
So it would go Kelvin Ridley, Miles Sanders, and then there's a lot of question marks for me at least here. I would go with Jahmyr Gibbs next because Jahmyr Gibbs is walking into a situation where if he's healthy and he's playing, he's going to get points and he's going to get touches. And I think the Lions are going to have some leads that they should be able to get fine. So I think it's going to be Kelvin Ridley. I think it's going to be Miles Sanders. I think it's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. Then I'm going to go off the rails here for a moment, and I'm going to tell you that Mike Williams is going to be better here for the same.
I think he will be.
For the same reason that I like Keenan Allen, I like Mike Williams. Now, the Chargers did have an explosion problem last year, but Mike Williams.
It was mostly when he got hurt, though, and when he was banged up.
But Mike Williams, for me at least, is a good option here because if he develops rapport, and the other things about Mike Williams too is he's going to go off for a 30-point game.
Well, the other thing is with the West playing the East, these guys are going to be in a lot of shootouts. Obviously, the 2 against Kansas City, but 3 of the teams in the East, Miami, the Jets, and Buffalo, you're going to have to score if you want to win that game. And when you look at the Chargers overall, that's mostly their schedule. Like, they know their defense is horrible. They have to outscore you. And Williams is a big part of that.
But see, and this is the reason why I like Mike Williams in the PPR league here. Mike Williams is going to give me the chance at 20 points, whereas Deontay Johnson isn't even going to sniff 20 points. And that's the same thing here with Tyler Lockett. And the reason why that situation is a little bit shifty is that Tyler Lockett had the ability to get you above 20 points when he was playing last year. I don't think that's going to happen this year. So
I think some of those touches are going to Walker.
When we look at this situation, you're looking at Kelvin Ridley as my number 1 in this grouping, Miles Sanders as my number 2, Gibbs is my number 3. Then you're looking at Mike Williams as my number 4.
Okay.
Then I'm probably laying it out there, and I'm probably going to put Drake London as my 5. Drake London as in the 5 hole here. I think he's going to get touchdowns again this year. I mean, and he does need it. He does need touchdowns in order to perform. In order for those numbers to go up, Drake London does need that. And he's sitting at 38 last year with 106 points in a standard league. So you look at those numbers now after we add in the PPR points. You're looking at Drake London now similar to Mike Williams, sitting at 178 points. So those catches for him really make a difference. And so, he was doing, if you discount the catches, he's still getting the ball in situations where he's getting yards.
Yeah.
He's getting yards. He's getting touches. He's getting red zone looks. I think Drake London is perfect look for you in this situation here. Then I have Pacheco. I'm not sold on Kansas City's running back situation yet, but if I need a running back, Pacheco is definitely a look here in these bottoms because I think that he's going to last this long based upon his situation. And you're probably going to see at the same time that Pacheco's drafted, almost immediately after Pacheco's drafted, you're probably going to get the pass catcher there as well. McKinnon. I think they're going to go in the same. We still haven't talked about Swift yet. Now, Dallas Goedert, I think it's a bad situation. I'm staying away from Dallas Goedert. Justin Fields, again, Tyler Lockett is above Dallas Goedert for me. Deontay Johnson is above Dallas Goedert as well. And then Dallas Goedert, it would be below Justin Fields in these rankings.
Gotcha.
I think Justin Fields, he had a great rushing season last year. If he's able to put in a good passing season, those rushing numbers are going to come down. And I think he's going to probably normalize around like 250 points. He's probably going to normalize maybe around the 16th best, maybe 17th best quarterback. And I don't want the 16th, 17th best quarterback in the sixth round of my draft.
And that's all fair. So we have some very big fundamental differences in when we look at how I rank this compared to when you rank this. So for me, Gibbs is by far and away the first one I want off of this list. I love his situation. I love that they went all in first round to get him, and Detroit is going to use him. Quite frankly, they moved Swift so they can give him more reps. I love that. As I brought up Swift like 6 times, I think he's a great, great guy. I also love Miles Sanders' situation. I think that he is getting so much shade thrown his way, and it's not deserved. I think that Sanders is going to have himself an absolutely great season. I love Mike Williams for all the upside you said. The only fear I have with him is obviously the injury history. The guy is probably the most talented receiver in LA. And I love the situation he has because that quarterback's not throwing the ball. This is where we disagree a lot. I love Dallas Goedert this year. I think Dallas Goedert has a chance of being the number 2 tight end. And if you can give me him here, and here's the reason. They're going to throw the ball a lot because they're going to be losing a lot.
Sure.
And you look at Goddard, he's the biggest target in Arizona. By far the biggest target. They just lost Hopkins. And when you're desperate chucking the ball, you go to the big man. And Goddard has already shown in his history that he can produce when there's other weapons on the field. He did it in Philadelphia, and I think he's going to be doing it here. I like Dallas Goedert overall. I do think he'll end up being the second tight end. Now, the question is it a tangible distance between everyone else?
Freeze yourself.
I'm freezing myself.
He's still listed as a Philadelphia Eagles player here. You're telling me he went to Arizona.
Oh, I'm mixing him up with the one they traded.
You're mixing it up with Ertz.
I'm mixing him up with Ertz. I apologize. Take everything back I just said. Everything I just said was about Ertz. So Goddard at Philly, take that back. Take that back. I mixed him up with Ertz. I feel dumb and shameful. The bottom line is everything I just said is about Ertz. I do think he will be the number 2 tight end. Goddard is just a dude.
Goddard was the 12th best tight end.
Yeah, he's just the guy. He's fine. He's now the second last on my list. I take all that back. Ertz will be great when he comes up here.
Goddard's last on my list now.
So there you go.
I mean, why would you do that to me?
I'm sorry I messed up. All right, so let me reset this. It goes Gibbs, Sanders, Williams, now Drake London that we have fixed this. Because I love the volume of London. I think that he's going to be getting the play action looks, especially in the red zone. He's a bigger body than Pitts. And given the fact that we're trying to condense the field with a running game, I like Jake London's potential. I think Atlanta as an overall total is going to score much more points than they did last year. And they were going to crockpot a lot of teams. And it's just going to be like, wow, like Atlanta isn't losing, but it's not sexy. That will be the story of the Atlanta Falcons this year. And then look at who we're left with. Literally the right side. I would take Pacheco next as my 6 hole. I would take Lockett as the 7 because Lockett does get touchdowns. And while his volume might come down, typically a rookie receiver, unless your name's Jefferson or Chase, doesn't go off. And you're not really a threat to established guys. And I think that the simple fact the connection he had with Geno is going to be there. Again, they're playing some really big cupcakes, but they also are going to have some shootouts. So when they play Dallas, they're going to put up some points. And I look at this overall, Deontay is just kind of slipping into the spot by default. Then comes Goddard, but I have absolutely no faith in Ridley at all. You don't quit on a team and get love from me. Just the way it is. I'll say the exact same thing about Mike Thomas when he rolls around as well. So that's how my rankings go. And again, I apologize for mixing up Ertz and Goddard. Sorry, people. But when it's all said and done, join us and sign up to be a part of us for our best ball leagues that we'll be doing here on FanDuel. And if you haven't already, click subscribe.